Hey guys, Max92 and welcome back to another wrap-up. Today's wrap-up is on Psychonauts. It's a cult classic with a sequel that should be, if I've timed this video right, out today. I believe today, the day this video goes up, should be the release date if I timed it correctly. Hopefully. I've finally gotten into it after many years. I own it on, I think, both Steam and GOG, but when I tried to play it on my old laptop, it just didn't work. Like the FMVs just stuttered or whatever, and I don't think I ever gotten around to trying it on my current laptop. So I finally got to it as the original Xbox game via backwards compatibility, which is why it is in 4:3. All the footage you will see is in 4:3. I believe the game on PC might be widescreen, not sure. What I played on the as an original Xbox game on the Xbox Series X via backwards compatibility was in 4:3. Because of this game's visual style, it's aged really well. It doesn't look as like blocky and polygon-y as other original Xbox games I've talked about on the show. So like, I chalk it up to being that it's very distinct art style, visual direction, which makes things like a lot wackier looking, but in the end leads it to sort of aging a lot better over time against the more realistic stuff that has also been out. And for the most part, I think the gameplay has aged pretty decently as well. It's a little bit jank here and there, but like overall it's relatively solid. Again, it's not like a Mario Odyssey where it's like, it's not that quality because it's not made that recently, but it's still pretty good even today. However, the camera gave me some issues all over the place. Like, there were just certain sections of the game, like in the asylum, where the camera just wouldn't. It would just get out behind a wall and I couldn't see anything or whatever, and that's probably the most dated part of the whole thing, is how the camera functions with the environment. The narrative and dialogue, though, are excellent.
Oh, thanks for saving me.
Well, actually, I was saving this plant.
Never seen one so meaty before.
I have. It's been appearing in this creepy nightmare I keep having.
You're having nightmares? Oh, I've been reading about how to fix those. Will you let me see one?
No.
Just that, the music and the visual style are enough to make this an excellent product that I would recommend at least looking at, and we're not even done yet. Like, it's really good just in that sense, and that's discounting the levels and their concepts. And because I want to talk about those more in depth, I have a scripted version of me that'll be doing some voiceover over some clips who will talk about that. Now, I'm only going to be talking about the mental locations here, as the other places are more hub worlds than levels for the most part, which means I'm not going over my thoughts on the camp, under the lake, or the asylum. So to start, I'm going to talk about the tutorial/Act 1 levels mostly altogether. These are Coach Oleander's Basic Braining, the Brain Tumbler Experiment, Sasha's Shooting Gallery, Mila's Dance Party, These are all passable levels that stand to teach you something. Coach's Braining is the general tutorial, Sasha's Shooting Gallery teaches combat, and Mila's Dance Party teaches you advanced movement techniques. In addition to this, the Brain Tumbler gives you the early plot details, as well as foreshadowing pretty much the rest of the game. If I had to pick a favorite of these, it would probably be the Dance Party, as I feel it is the most fleshed out of the four. The start of the non-tutorial levels is Lungfishopolis. I had a great time with this. It's sort of annoying that I can't use Levitate, so the movement feels slow, and some of the enemies get annoying, but conceptually, it was a real fun level, and being called
Gargalore
by fish is a great time. The whole narrative of helping out some rebels defeat a regime must have been some kind of common idea in the cultural zeitgeist of the early 2000s, though, because it seems like a lot of games from the OG Xbox use that concept. Moving on, we have the Milkman Conspiracy. Narratively and conceptually, I loved it. It was interesting seeing the world through the eyes of someone with severe paranoia. The exploration of mental health issues and trauma done in the game is generally pretty interesting overall.
I am the milkman. My milk is delicious.
And the sea shall run white with his rage.
However, actually playing the level tended to be a whole lot more fussing with the camera and falling off the level. I started getting pretty frustrated with the game around this point. It sucks because this is probably one of the most iconic sections of the game, and I do like it conceptually. In practice, however, it wasn't as fun as I'd hoped it'd be. Next up was Glorious Theater. This one was just kind of boring. It's really small, and while the concept of having to try different stages and scripts sounds interesting, in practice, it doesn't really play very interesting.
Your fighting is weak, uninspired, and flat as a pancake.
You collect a script, hit the switch to get the stage mood you want, then travel through the gate things that change the set dressing until you think you're in the right place to run that script. After that, you run through the rafters a little bit. It's not particularly memorable or interesting.
Is my sanctuary.
Now, Waterloo World is probably my favorite of all the stages. I like the setup, I like the concept, and I like the gameplay of it too. You're trying to win a strategy board game against an imaginary Napoleon Bonaparte on the behalf of his descendant Fred. It mostly involves solving problems for the pieces so that they will do what you need them to do. My favorite part, however, is how seamless the size changing is. Besides the cannon shellfish creatures that I couldn't seem to kill, there wasn't much about this level that I had to complain about. In my opinion, it's the best overall level in the game. Second to last is Black Velvetopia. This place is beautiful. It's the best visual design of all the areas of the game. If visuals were all there was to a game, this level would get top marks. However, that is not the case, so I have to say it. The bull is pretty annoying. The small hallways don't play that great with the fussy camera, and this area has 5 boss fights, 6 if you count El Odio and Dingo as 2 separate ones. It really is just overlong, and its gameplay gimmick is annoying.
I think I hate that bull a lot.
Oh, trust me, you'll hate him even more as time goes by.
It's not the worst thing ever, but it isn't really challenging to get around. It's just bothersome, and since the bull doesn't even damage you, it poses no danger at all, just sets you back. It was a lot better to deal with when I came back after beating the area and the bull was gone entirely. Finally, we have Meet Circus. Honestly, I think it's pretty bad. It starts with an escort section where this kid runs to a faraway platform and gets the crap beat out of him until you get there, only to go to the next platform and do it again. It's good that at least his health regenerates when he moves to the next platform, but it's really just poor design. Plus, the kid is kind of annoying. Then, you go across some rails and get to the boss room. The first boss section is pretty boring and standard. There are much better bosses in the game. You wait, walk up him, hit him, repeat 2 more times. Then, the second boss section is a platforming challenge area that, by the time I'd gotten to it, I was really getting tired of the game overall. I found it pretty annoying and jank, and it wasn't helped by the constantly repeated dialogue.
Hey son, cat! No,
After that was a new version of the first boss section, but it was on fire and you had to throw things at it to knock him over first so you could hit it. This was more engaging than the first form, but actually ended up worse because of the repeated dialogue from the previous section being brought forward.
I'm not gonna start.
Finally, for real, was the last stage of the boss fight, which is pretty much evade and wait for your meter to charge and then pummel the boss, which was simpler than any other section, but ended up being the most satisfying of them all. I wouldn't say that I disliked it, but it's nothing to write home about. Overall, Meet Circus was not very fun, but in taking the game as a whole, I generally had a good time despite some bumps in the road. Thank you, Scripted Me, for all that. I don't have very many overall negatives. Most of my negatives were covered in that segment there because they're a bit more level specific. The one overall negative I do have is that this game has ended up being one of a very short list of games that I've played that will give me motion sickness if I play it for too long. And I don't really know what causes it. It's not with that many games. The only other main game that it happens with is Dying Light, and I'm not sure why. And I mean, that's a very specific to me negative, but if you are sensitive to motion sickness, it might be a problem for you as well. I don't know. It might just be my combination of console and television that causes this for me. I'm not entirely sure. Outside of finding collectibles, I didn't feel a need to really even use a walkthrough. There was one section in Waterloo World where I couldn't figure out how to get the coin out of the fireplace. And I'm looking it up. It's really obvious. I just sort of forget about how certain abilities work in games sometimes. I constantly, in Breath of the Wild, just forget about Cryonesis. So, like, sometimes when you just got a bunch of abilities, you just forget about how they work, what they are, and it's like, oh, right, I need to use telekinesis to get it out of there. Okay. But, like, other than that, I just use it to find some of the collectibles that I missed. And speaking of collectibles, I did get very close to 100% in the game. But this is another one of my negatives. The figments, I don't think are worth it. Some of them are difficult to get. Some of them are hard to just find in general because they move. And some levels have 200 plus of them. It's just ridiculous to expect that as a completion standard, I think. So I got 93 or something, level 93 on whatever it's called, the little psi level thing, and that's as far as I went with it because it just didn't feel worth it to spend another several hours going through the last, 4 levels trying to get the last of the figments I needed. By the end, the game hadn't quite overstayed its welcome, but it was getting close, which is part of why I decided not to go for completion. I wanted to walk away with this game and not hate it because I'd played too much of it. And honestly, if you don't go for a completion and you just sort of do everything you want to do and just play through the game, you'll have a great time with it. I really recommend it if that's something you're into. Or you could maybe just skip to Psychonauts 2. From what I've heard, it does give you a recap. And maybe you don't want to play a game from 2004 or 2005 or whatever. Maybe that doesn't appeal to you as much. So either way, recommend Psychonauts. Either play this one, maybe start with the second one. I hope to do a video on the second game eventually, but I'm way behind. I've got a bunch of other wrap-ups scheduled and in production, so we'll see where that goes. Check out Psychonauts if you want. It's on Steam. It's available via GOG. It's on Game Pass, so there's plenty of opportunities to play it in some form. Yeah. So we'll get into the outro bits in the description. Find links to all my places: Twitter, Patreon, Bandcamp, SoundCloud. etc. Like the video if you liked it, dislike if you didn't. Leave a comment if you have things to say. Do you like this new style where I interject some more scripted segments in the wrap-up and the, more loose bullet script stuff, intersperse some traditional scripted stuff? How do you like that? I have a couple upcoming wrap-ups that will have something like that in it. I think that might be the way I do them moving forward. So, let me know about that. Share the video if you have people who want to know about Psychonauts. It's, like I said at the beginning, it's kind of like a cult classic at this point, so I feel like just about everybody knows about it. But hey, here's my opinion. Here's another opinion in the ring on it. I think that's all the things. Subscribe if you want to keep up with this and other shows. Do the things. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!
When it is your wish to travel across the lake, you may return to either shore and summon me with that.
Thanks, hulking lungfish. You really aren't as hideous as people say.
You may call me now by my true name, Rasputin. The name given to me by my people.
And what name is that, noble lake creature?
Linda.
What a magical lady.